we're out the Culcairn Road, a couple of kilometres on a property called Culcairn, and we have about 200 acres on this property, which is along the Billabong Creek. And we run a mixed farming enterprise here of a cattle stud and some sheep and a small amount of cropping, predominantly for the livestock.
So it was probably about 3 years ago that we started to fence a corridor through the Billabong Creek, and with that we put some water points out the back for some troughs for stock as well, and that just gave us a lot more control over where our stock were able to go for grazing at certain times of the year.
So just really to help with the management, ease of management, and then the floods have come along and washed away more than half of that riparian fencing.
It was Friday lunchtime, I think it was the 15th of October, and it had been raining all morning. We sort of monitored the creek pretty closely that afternoon, knowing that there'd been a fair bit of rain further towards Holbrook as well, and up towards Little Billabong. And then, yeah, we just kept an eye on the creek and it just kept coming up. It was we went to bed about 11 o'clock, I think it was, and got up at 1 and went and checked the paddock where we had some stock, and at that point we knew that the creek was going to get fairly high. I think it had risen, I think we worked out something like 4 metres in 2 hours, and it was just at the back of our house then. As the sun started coming up, we realised that it had already lapped around the front of the house, and you know, virtually the house was a little island surrounded by water at probably 7, 8 o'clock on the Saturday morning.
At the time we were just overwhelmed by what was happening, but we didn't really have time to think about the situation, and I guess we tried to handle it the best way we could by managing our stock more than anything. And then since then we've obviously had to address the fact that we've lost fences and we've lost troughs and hay, and how will we go about refixing the situation that had been created from the flooding.
Pretty much sort of the first place we saw was behind the house, where all the fences were either flattened or just full of debris and sticks and burrs and all that sort of stuff. I think reality hit then that, you know, it was quite a big flood and there was going to be a fair bit of damage to our property. And I think it was on the Sunday morning we were standing at the back fence just looking at all the water, and we were watching all our rolls of hay just float down the Billabong Creek. We didn't have the money to do the fencing or anything, so we sort of were a little bit concerned on what we were going to do. And then yeah, we got a phone call to say that the CMA had managed to procure some funding from the government to replace the fencing, or to provide the materials to replace the fencing. And yeah, we were just stoked when we heard about that, because it just meant that we could, you know, we knew that we could make a start then on fixing it all up.
And we didn't really want to have to be continually fixing fences, so for us to move the fences away from the creek a bit further in the spots that were going to be severely affected again by another flood was a sensible move, so that we didn't have to, you know, continually refix fences and have to outlay that money as well.
So they're strategically grazing the riparian area and able to move the stock around to get the best possible results.
On some of the low-lying areas, we just thought that, you know, common sense prevails, and we needed to move it back up the hill a little bit. You know, they weren't massive areas that we've lost by doing it, but fingers crossed, you know, next time if there is a flood come through, the fence won't be in the actual sort of the fast-flowing area of the creek, I guess you could say. And you know, it might be only 2 foot underwater, where it's just flowing a little bit slower, and hopefully the damage mightn't be as severe as if we left it where we had it previously.
For us, it suits our system and the way in which we can have an advantage out of the creek, and it gives something back to us and us give something back to it in return, I suppose. And that way we keep a nice balance, and it works really well for our livestock.
There's not just the, I suppose, the farm income benefits, there's also the environmental benefits to fencing off those riparian areas.
We didn't even realise what natives were really here. It's sort of been a learning curve for us as well. So just to actually have nice vegetation and the wildlife that has, like the bird life that's moved back into the creek, has been quite amazing.
You've had regen of your red gums, and then your native grasses, and then you've got your lovely river callistemon, your bottlebrush, is coming back up as well. Sean and Cherie have been very open to considering what they need to change. They're not locked in to one way of doing things, and I think being able to adapt and change as the seasons change, and to take on new information is really going to help them in the future.
Our management system will still run the same, we'll still treat the creek the same, and we don't really see it as a disadvantage or really a major advantage, except that we don't have to repair fences, hopefully, except for maybe once in our lifetime.